Hi, everyone. So thanks again to those who just joined now. This webinar is going to be quite short and sweet. It's going to be around 20 minutes long, and it's going to be about worries of returning to school. It's basically aimed at parents, if you're worried for your child, or if your child is worried about going back to school, and how you can handle this, how to approach the situation and everything. So my name is Elisa Macris. I'm a business psychologist at Thrive. And if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them or raise your hand. I will try to monitor the chat and the Q&A as much as possible throughout the webinar, but I'll probably get to everything at the end of the webinar because that would just be easier for me. If you want to talk, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you and you can just join in the conversation or let us know about what your worries are and we can have an open discussion about it. But to begin with, I'll start with this 20-minute short webinar to begin everything. So the topics that we will be covering today are spotting the signs and symptoms of stress, worry, and anxiety, tips on having conversation with your child about their worries, and then tips for helping yourself and your child feel more confident in managing their worries better. So yeah. Schools reopening and pupils returning can be a relief, but it can also be a stress at the same time. And not just for your child, but for you as well. It's okay and perfectly normal to be nervous about change. It's also normal to have a hard time managing this transition. There might be worries around safety. Maybe your child is nervous about going back to school because they've been out of school for some time. And you might be wondering, how do I approach this conversation with them? It can be stressful in itself to suddenly shift from looking after your children at home and always keeping an eye on them to letting them just go back to school and kind of losing sight of them for this many hours, especially now that we have so many other worries going on at the same time. Even so, there are benefits to children going back to school as well. So education and a sense of normality is slowly resuming for your child and for you as well. They're able to spend more time with their friends again. And again, there's a sense of structure and routine coming back into our lives in some sort of way. So those are some of the positive aspects at the same time as well. So here are just some signs that you can look out for when we're feeling stressed, worried, or anxious. It's really important to remember that these signs display uniquely to every single individual, so it's not going to be the same for every single one of us. You should look out for psychological, physical, and behavioral signs or changes. Psychological signs can be anxiety, distress, tearfulness, low mood, doubt, low motivation, loss of humor, being upset easily, poor concentration, difficulty relaxing, and maybe lacking confidence, hopelessness, pessimism, even worthlessness, and thoughts of hurting oneself. So those are more linked into depression, and those really then need to get addressed as well. Then there can be physical signs. Those can be tiredness, headaches, appetite or weight changes, changes in sleep, shakiness, sweating, constantly feeling cold, tingling in hands and feet, maybe racing heartbeat, difficulty breathing, a dry mouth, and dizziness. So these physical symptoms can be brought about by the fight, flight, or freeze response, which is active during stressful situations. I will later talk about some relaxation exercises that we can use in order to manage these physical symptoms a little bit better. Then, of course, there are also behavioral signs such as irritability, anger or aggression, maybe restlessness, repetitive speech or activity, or overeating or overreacting to problems. So basically, there can be a combination of psychological, physical, and behavioral signs which you might spot. However, be mindful that just because you might see some changes, this does not necessarily mean that you should immediately start to worry or that you should immediately address them, as mental health is similar to physical health. It's on the spectrum. We can go through ups and downs during our lifetime, and this does not always require an intervention. So for example, for our physical health, if we catch a cold, it's good for us to rest and recover so that our body can feel healthy again, and this does not necessarily mean that we immediately need medical attention or medical intervention. And this is the same for mental health. When we experience something stressful or maybe something sad, we might go through a low mood for some time, but many times we can naturally recover from this, and we don't necessarily need an intervention, but maybe we just need some more support or some more attention to our mental health than usual. And this is what we can do with the relaxation exercises and managing our stress levels a little bit better, which I will mention again later. So it's important to take into consideration if the changes that you are observing, they show a marked difference maybe from the usual behavior that is being displayed by this individual. And if this lasts for a long period of time, or also if there's a decline in function, or they stop doing the everyday activities that they always used to do, then you should start paying a little bit more attention to it, because then it might start to be needing to be addressed. So this then leads me onto tips for having a conversation with your child. So let's say you have seen some marked changes and you would like to address these with your child. When having a conversation with your child about their worries, it's so important not to make any assumptions. Your child will not really want you to decide how they are feeling and why they are feeling this way. The best thing to do is to ask open-ended questions which don't make assumptions about the situations or feelings. So for example, instead of asking, did you sleep well last night? You ask, how did you sleep last night? This is just a tiny alteration in the question that you ask, but it changes it from a yes or no question to an open-ended question where they can tell you themselves exactly how they've been sleeping or how they've been feeling about the situation. So try not to ask any leading sort of questions so you can get more information out of them, basically. Try to listen to your child and don't judge. If you start including your own opinion about the situation or their response, they might start getting defensive, as you might maybe hit a nerve or have the completely wrong interpretation. So it's best to practice active listening, where you maybe nod in order to respond, to show them that you're paying attention to them, or you ask them to explain something further that you didn't quite understand, or you summarize what they have said to you using their words as well, and ask if you're on the right track or if you're understanding them correctly, also again to show them that you're listening and paying attention to them. You also want to encourage them to reflect upon themselves and their own emotional state, so that they can come to their own conclusions about how they're feeling about these situations. Also reassure that your child that they are safe and that you will help them get through their worries, whatever that might be, and that you can be there for them and help them handle their worries as well. Give your child time to talk about whatever they feel comfortable with opening up about. Also allow there to be silences, let's say, in the conversation, because these silences show that your child is taking time to reflect, is taking time to understand the emotional state that they're currently in. Sometimes it can be difficult to put these emotional states into words, so these silences help the individual to really think about what they're feeling and how they can put this into words. Also, try not to say that you're worried about them, because this might upset them and they really don't want to be the cause of your worries as well. It might be difficult, but also try to remain calm if possible while talking to them. This will allow your child to feel comfortable with opening up and really reassure them that you are able to support them as well. Also keep in mind, it's not always about solving an issue. Sometimes it's just good to have a shoulder to cry on and to be able to share or validate one's own feelings, showing them that you're there in case they need you, but also letting them know that sometimes things can't be changed, but we can learn to accept them and adapt to them. Lastly, try to show your child that talking about mental health or stress is really not a taboo subject. Be open about your own worries, about your own feelings, as much as you think is appropriate, of course. And this will encourage your child to open up about their feelings as well, as it really becomes part of the natural conversations that you might have. So this is then some tips for helping yourself and your child to feel more confident to return to school. If you model appropriate behavior, this helps your child a lot. If you remain calm as well, show your child that you're practicing government regulations by illustrating the importance of hygiene and social distancing. So if you model this appropriate behavior on a daily basis, your child will likely mirror your behavior, and this will help them to understand how important these regulations are. Also, if you show them that you are calm, this will reassure your child that they are safe and that this is something that both you and your child can cope with and get through. Limit news consumption and make sure that they are from reliable resources. Try not to have the news playing in the background constantly. This could really worry your child, but also try not to shelter your child too much, as children are intuitive, of course, and so they know that if there's something wrong, they will pick up on it. It might be a good idea for you to consume the news first and then explain to your child what is happening, only really giving them the facts and omitting anything that's too emotional or too dramatized, let's say. So the best thing to do is to help them to understand the situation as much as you think is appropriate for their age, and be realistic with the expectations of what will happen next. You should take cues from your child and answer what they're asking you. Maybe invite them to ask you questions so that they can tell you things that they have been hearing maybe, and you can let them know if this is true or not. So the point of this conversation is really to avoid encouraging any frightening fantasies that they might have heard. Also encourage mindful and open conversations about your psychological well-being by addressing these worries or challenges which you might be facing together. Try also to deal with your own anxiety as much as possible. And yeah, as said before, if you remain calm, it shows them that you can support them and that you can support your family in general and others as well as yourself. If you notice you're feeling more anxious in some days, it really might be good to leave the conversation for some other time and deal with your own anxieties first before addressing other people's anxieties or worries. You can use psychological strategies, of course, for yourself as well as your child to help you manage the stress and anxiety, which I'm going to talk about a bit now. So here are just some tips for both you and your child on what we can do to manage our stress and to keep the stress levels down and also to address our worries in a healthy way. There are a range of relaxation exercises you can try. These can help to bring you back to a calmer state and help you to reduce those fight, flight, or freeze symptoms that I was talking about before, like elevated heart rate, shallow breathing, dizziness. When we're feeling stressed and worried, those are the physiological signs that we often feel. So deep muscle relaxation is a body-based relaxation exercise during which you are asked to sit down or lie down in a comfortable place and tense and relax certain muscle groups within your body. So when we are stressed, we tend to hold tension within our body, which we often are not even consciously aware of. So this helps us to release this tension and brings our body back to a calmer state and really allows us to feel more relaxed as well. It helps to build awareness of our mind-body connection as well through this bottom-up process of relaxation. And due to the physical nature of this type of exercise, children tend to enjoy it as well. So I always encourage parents to maybe do it together with their children. And this relaxation technique has been shown to be really effective in reducing anxiety and especially at improving sleep. So it might be a really good idea for you to practice this before bedtime or before you go to sleep, as this will also improve the quality of your sleep. Then there's meditation. This is a mind-based relaxation exercise, which is essentially a form of attention training. When meditating, you are learning to build awareness of when your attention is being captured by internally generated negative thoughts and then let them go without feeling that you really need to act upon them or do anything about them. This way you become an objective observer of your thoughts as you do not let them, let's say, alter your emotional state or let them consume you. Practicing meditation improves our well-being and also increases our self-awareness. It helps you to manage your stress better by separating that emotional arousal from attention and helping you to make more constructive decisions for yourself as a result. Of course, this takes some time and practice to learn, but if you have learned the skill and you start feeling comfortable in it, you'll start using it in everyday situations and it will just come naturally to you at some point. Then there's calm breathing. This is a really useful to, again, reduce those fight or flight symptoms, such as elevated heart rate and shallow breathing. It's also really effective for reducing panic symptoms when someone is having a panic attack. So going through only a 3-minute calm breathing exercise where the individual breathes in for a certain number of counts. So you breathe in for 1, 2, 3, you hold for 1, 2, 3, you breathe out 1, 2, 3, and you hold for 1, 2, 3. So sometimes I like to imagine a box in front of me and do this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1. So making it visual can also help children a little bit, especially for those individuals who like to be visual, let's say. But this really helps you to reduce those fight or flight symptoms and really reduce panic symptoms as well. Very effective. So there's also cognitive behavioral therapy, of course, and this has been shown to not just be effective for treatment, but also the prevention of common mental health disorders such as depression or anxiety. And it also helps us to think about a stressful situation in a more helpful and constructive way. Basically, it helps us to understand the link between emotions, thoughts, and behaviors. This allows us to understand when we might be having unhelpful thoughts. For example, if we get a bad grade or something like that, or we get a negative feedback, we might have unhelpful thoughts such as, I am a failure. But CBT will help us to change these unhelpful thoughts to more helpful ones. So instead of thinking, I got a bad grade, so I'm a failure, I'm never going to be good at this, you change it to, well, you know, like it's sometimes good to make mistakes, we learn from mistakes, and getting this feedback will help me to improve for next time as well. So basically seeing the same situation in a more positive light. It also helps us to understand what anxiety triggers we might have in the environment and feel better prepared to deal with them in the future. Something else that might work for you could be a worry budget. When worries come, you can deal with them during this worry time that you've set for yourself, but not before. So basically you allocate yourself no more than 30 minutes per day. You do this somewhere that you won't be disturbed or that you do not associate with sleep or relaxation. For example, you can do it in your kitchen. So you work through your worries systematically, like you create a list one by one and sort them into things that you can do something about now and things that you might have to deal with at a later date. Think about how you might solve these worries and make a plan to tackle them. So set yourself small, manageable goals to tackle those worries that you're working through. So for hypothetical worries, let's say, so if you're having a worry, what if this and that happens? You need to ask yourself, then what? So think about it in a very pragmatic way and think about what you would do and how you would manage that situation and prevent it from happening or prevent it from affecting you negatively in some sort of way.